Hey, everybody. This is our next episode of the Tech Vibe Radio One Mic Stand. And when Terry Glick from Innovation Works and Alpha Lab reached out to me earlier this week, she told me about this awesome project being spun up by some alum from the Alpha Lab program. It's the ppeconnectpgh.com site. And this thing is just amazing. I love seeing the tech world come together to solve tough problems like getting personal protection equipment to the people on the front lines. Could be more excited to talk to Alejandros Sklar and Matt Verlinich. Guys, thanks for hanging out and giving us more details on this really kick-butt website that you guys made.
Oh, for sure. Thanks for having us. We're really excited to be here.
I always like starting off with just quick little background so our listeners and viewers can kind of just learn a little bit about your background and what inspired you to do this. So Alejandro, let's start with you. What is your background real quick?
So I am an engineer, but really a product designer. I've been involved in the startup community in Pittsburgh. I actually had a company that went through the Alpha Lab Gear Accelerator program. It was a 3D printing company, and we got exposed to a lot of the manufacturers, the startups community in the area. And so when the crisis started, so about 3 weeks ago, I was speaking to my friend, the other founder of PPE Connect, who's David, and he was really trying to see if we could get involved. He wanted to get his hands dirty with this, see how he could help, even if it was just assembling things on the lines.
Right. Okay. Cool.
And I had been pulled into some threads about PPE, about what the startup community could possibly do, and there just was it was really fragmented. I mean, it still is, but even 3 weeks ago, it was just crazy.
I know.
And so we sort of threw out this idea, like, wouldn't it just be helpful as a good starting point to sort of, maybe if it's a website, we could figure out a way to get a very visible sort of log of what the needs are, where the shortages in our community really are here, very local. And there had to be equipment available out there that some of that traditional equipment that people just had on hand and that they weren't using, whether they were individuals or small businesses. And so we thought it would be a good starting point. We put up a website where we let medical providers request, and log some of their shortages, and then really see what donations might be available out there, and then actually go up and pick up those donations and then distribute them ourselves. And we'll go into details of how that works, but that's where it all started. We put that site up, and then people started using it, and in fact, that equipment is out there.
Exactly. I mean, it's already working. That's what's so
working.
Cool.
And we're really trying to just uncover sources of that equipment. And we come to those places to do the pickups, so people don't have to go anywhere to do those donations, minimize the travel. And we're getting those out into the hands of the front lines, the first responders, and sort of smaller and mid-sized clinics.
Gotcha.
And then we've gotten into some of this DIY sort of production of some equipment as well. I'm sure we'll go into that today.
We will, absolutely, because this has many facets to it, and I think that's so interesting. And so, Matt, what's your background with IW, and how'd you get tangled up in this project?
Yeah, that is a very good question. So my background, I'm also an engineer by schooling, by training. I opened in my introduction into this whole community here was I opened and ran Tech Shop for its first 3 years. Before leaving to develop my own product.
Okay.
So I took an idea, crowdfunded it, designed it, prototyped it, mass produced it, distributed it all over the world, and I still sell that on the side. But
what is that?
Actually, it's called On the Rocks, and it's a clear ice mold.
Cool, man. Dig it.
Thanks, Alejandro. Yeah, so you just fill it up with water, put it in your freezer, and out comes like the kind of ice that you would get at a very fancy cocktail bar.
Dig it. All right.
So that brought, I had worked with Alana Diamond, who started Alpha Lab Gear, and that brought me to her attention whenever they were looking for somebody to take over for Afshan and running their manufacturing program.
Gotcha.
So that's I ended up on board with Innovation Works because they needed somebody who could kind of speak to both that technical and that business side of manufacturing a physical product. So it's now been a year and a half.
Okay, cool.
I've been working for IW, managing their manufacturing program. So naturally, when everything hit with COVID, I have this weird sort of personal network of small business owners and
I like
entrepreneurs.
weird personal networks. They're very helpful like that.
Yeah, and makers too, like major overlap there. So I immediately started getting it from all different angles of all of these people wanting to do different things to try to help with the COVID crisis. And now with the connection at IW is very much in this hub of all sorts of it. In addition to just the manufacturing programs, there's also the investor side and the institutional relationship side and the foundations, and everybody wants to try to help. And I was just like, there is a lot of stuff going on right now. And there's no consensus on what is actually the biggest need right now. What resources are out there?
It's so different across every probably like neighborhood almost, just because of it's just so disparate, right?
Well, and what is the front line exactly is another thing. There are, there's hospitals and large hospitals. Some of those, like UPMC, have their own buying power and sort of self-distribute. Some smaller hospitals rely on just the county because they don't have the funds to take on, a shortage where you need to buy all this extra equipment. And then there's things like first responders. There's things like a homeless clinic, places that give out food. And, all of these sort of essential, but not traditionally the frontline large hospitals. So it's hard to really figure out where to attack on here, where to focus.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just impressed.
That was what kind of that was actually how I kind of got pulled into the PPE Connect thing, was because I pulled a bunch of people together onto one email thread, everybody that had like reached out to me, and Alejandro was one of those people. And so we just started talking on the phone, and I was kind of relaying the difficulty of understanding what were the needs and what were the resources that were out there, and how it was even different from, like Alejandro was saying, the frontline hospital workers or the small medical providers, independent, versus the UPMC or the whole system as a whole. Everybody's needs were kind of different. And Alejandro was like, sounds like what we need is a website.
A good old-fashioned website, right? Yeah.
Exactly what we need. Does anybody have this thing? Or
right.
And for all the people, a lot of them on the maker side, who were saying like, we can make this thing. We can make cloth masks. We can make N95 respirators. We can make face shields. Like, where do we take them?
Exactly. So this is what I find is just so cool about this story, is as it works on so many levels, where it starts off with you see this need, and of course it takes some Pittsburgh startups to say, we're going to try to solve something and step up and do something, right? That to me is just completely cool. Secondly is how fast you're able to do this. I mean, you say just create a website. Your site's very robust, right? I mean, and matching things up, and getting this to work isn't exactly like, it's a simple WordPress site, you put a couple plugins. I'm assuming it took a little bit of engineering in order to get a site that's actually going to function. And when I look at your site, you're reporting results like already, which I just love seeing that, like, this, what was an idea turned into a website that's now actually connecting. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was.
I'm going to say that was all Alejandro and David.
Okay.
It continues to be a lot of work, but the website itself went up in about a day and a half, the original version.
That's what I'm talking about.
And those were some long hours. David and I both sort of worked on the messaging. David was more focused on the messaging and the graphics. We both ended up running through all of that for a couple nights. And I, for a portion, just focused on sort of the technical side.
Right.
And then we did have a big overhaul, because initially it didn't show the real-time graphics. It just sort of showed logs of where that information was needed, or where those shortages were happening, and took those requests. So we updated the site 2 major times, but yeah, it's been just, we got to get it out fast.
Yeah, and you did. And what's really cool is it's already making a difference. And I'm just assuming, as this continues on, it's just going to have more and more impact, right?
We hope so. I mean, hopefully with this press that we're getting soon, and again, anyone listening, a lot of the equipment that's needed out there is, common items. We don't have to, these locations, they're providers, they're accepting the non-FDA approved versions. So some of those that are just like at the hardware store, if anyone is involved in home improvement, small construction, if you have a small business that does automotive, or painting or cleaning services, you probably have this equipment. And so we're trying to uncover that.
Definitely. Now I have a side idea for you guys. You need to make a site just like this, but for toilet paper.
Should I just add that right now to the request on the site?
Same basic structure. Just
I can do it.
Let's talk after this. Have some ideas.
We'll make our own page. We'll make a portion of the site that's just like, yeah, a home
DP side or something like that. It's becoming critical in certain neighborhoods.
It is ridiculous, but it, could possibly be useful.
I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying. But so let's talk about the idea of you're talking about having some makers that can actually start building some things, right? Like face shields and things like that. What's going on in that area?
Okay, so that was sort of where the discussion initially was.
Okay.
When Matt got pulled in all these directions. Some of it, it's just it's great, but some things like the respirator masks, which you hear a lot about, the N95s. Those are higher class medical devices, and
right.
So the requirements for those are a little bit
super strict, right? Yeah,
pretty strict. Things like a face shield, which is a class 1 medical device, doesn't have as strict of requirements, and really, so the respirators, those sort of help filter. They do active filtration just in case there's things that are being passed through the air that isn't like from droplets from someone's cough. The face shields really provide this barrier, a physical barrier. And first off, as a better than nothing, if a place does not have masks and covers,
at least you got a shield that's something
actually go over kind of around the face, and they stop those droplets from getting.
It's like the plexiglass panels at Giant Eagle. They got hang up cashiers. You got like something, right?
So it's a better than nothing alternative if you don't have masks, but also just provides secondary protection.
Right.
The other thing is a lot of these places are, I mean, at this point, the protocol, if you look at the CDC guidelines, it's to reuse masks. We're hearing, COVID.
That sounds dangerous to me, man.
It does. But if you don't have enough,
what are you going to do? It's better than nothing, right?
We're hearing, places that it's the active COVID floor, because in a hospital, you'll have an active floor with the cases.
Okay.
And they're reusing masks, or running low on these supplies. And so what ends up happening is if it's a cloth mask, like one of those respirators, and you go from patient to patient, let's imagine you're not on the COVID floor and you're interacting with someone that has the disease, you don't know about it, then you go see someone who doesn't.
Right. You
can't really clean the cloth mat, those respirators between patients. If you have a shield, the droplets hit the shield, you can wipe that shield down, you can disinfect it.
It was some Windex, man. Come on, shine it up.
Just with like either wipes, disinfectant wipes, or their method.
I would develop a squeegee. You spray it down and just squeeze it right off.
I mean, methods honestly similar to what you're talking about, but they can disinfect them better. So when they go see that next patient, they're not transmitting it. That respirator isn't getting dirty, and so it's just a way to help reuse some of this equipment in a more safe manner to reduce spread.
Definitely.
And so, there are a lot of projects that Matt got approached by: ventilators, cloth mat,
right?
Respirator masks. Really, for us as a starting point, it's something that could be done a lot quicker. And you saw these designs popping up all over the place. Was these face shields, and so very early on, we were located out of Proto Haven. That's actually where PPE Connect is doing some of their work. Proto Haven is a local makerspace who came up with a face shield alternative design to the 3D.
Love those guys. Absolutely.
It can be manufactured a lot quicker than the 3D printed one. It does have some drawbacks in how to sanitize them, because one of the most important things. And I love that the community is saying, I have these printers. How can we get this out? Let's do this.
Right.
One of the most important things is you don't want to be adding to the crisis. So everything has to be done in a way that you make sure you're sanitizing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right.
You have the COVID, like you have the disease. And so that, the laser cut version is great. It has some sanitation procedures that isn't true about the 3D printer one. We're basically moving on both fronts. And so we've now pulled in together, we went out, PPE Connect. We're actually fiscally supported by the Allegheny County Medical Society. They have a fund that people can contribute to, the COVID-19 Release Fund.
Very
cool. One of the projects that receives those funds. So we have actually gone out and we have supply materials that we've purchased for doing both the laser cut and the 3D printed versions of these face shields. And now we've been pulling in a coalition. It now currently is comprised of Robert Morris University, University of Pittsburgh through their MAC Foundation. RE Squared is a local robotics company, and then Hack PGH is an organization. We've pulled in those organizations. We're working on more, and we're funneling them materials. They're producing parts and using procedures that we have developed with help from the doctors at ACMS, at the Medical Society.
Right. Okay.
We actually had doctors sitting in our facility assembling pieces so that we can go through that process with them to make sure we're doing it in a safe manner.
The right way, exactly. Oh, that's awesome.
We're collecting those parts that get produced at PP where we're located, and we're doing the final assembly of the face shields and the final packaging. And then
that is amazing. Gotta love that, man, all the way around. So if people want to contribute, help out, can they just go to the ppeconnectpgh.com site, or what's the best way to get engaged?
The best way to get engaged, because we are actually pulling in some individuals. If you're capable of, I mean, really, this is on the 3D printing side, unless someone happens to have, a laser cutter. But whether you're an individual that has access to these machines, or you are a company and you want to help, you have a facility and you can help with some of the production, whether it's laser cutting or 3D printing, you can go onto our site to sort of see some information. But the best thing to do is get in contact with me personally.
Gotcha.
So either through the contact link on our page, or my email is actually alejandro@ppeconnectpgh.com, and I'm running the Face Shield Initiative.
Cool.
PPE Connect. And we'll have a quick call. We'll see if it works. If it makes sense, I can get you the procedures. We have to make sure that you can adhere to those, and we can throw you into our production process. We have
and you guys are
log and everything.
You guys are awesome like that. That's what I'm talking about.
So, and I do want to mention, because there are some parallel efforts going on that it's great. There's different places that have needs. We spoke with UPMC and different places about this. They ended up finding a different manufacturer, and they're able to pay for that equipment. That's great. Protohaven, I know, so as an organization, they're actually have materials, and they're pumping out parts. They actually have a contract with, I believe they're fulfilling orders for Global Links, who's a medical relief company in here.
Yeah, great.
And Global Links is distributing, and Global Links has certain funding. I'm not exactly sure how this works, but they're separate efforts from us. Ours is a little bit different. We are not taking any payments. So I believe Global Links, I probably shouldn't say this, but I believe that they're paying Protohaven for these things, which is fine. Protohaven needs to
absolutely, all good.
And they've got the people that they're distributing to. We are really getting this funding from ACMS, and we're focusing on some of these places that don't have that buying power. And since we are funded by this relief fund, we are giving those shields out for free.
Awesome,
so if anyone listening it needs some of has requests, is running shortages, could use these shields, they can request them online. We can't guarantee, we have so many requests, we're not guaranteeing that anyone who fills it out fills out a request form is going to get these supplies, but you might as well put your information on it.
Get yourself in the queue as far as that is. Exactly. Amazing stuff. What an awesome story.
We're not fulfilling entire requests for the most part. If someone requests 200,
maybe I give you 20, right? Yeah.
And we try to prioritize. We actually have the ACMS is helping us do the prioritization.
Makes sense. Very cool, guys.
I'd like to emphasize that Alejandro and David were on this from day one, and were out there before they knew any of this was going to work out. They were sourcing that material, and they were paying for it up front. They not only put in all of the hours to build the website and to make these connections, but they also fronted everything for their initial effort. Cool. And so they're donating this stuff. So just another big shout out.
Totally, man.
Please go on there and help them support this effort to get this stuff to those who need it.
This just proves Pittsburgh's really cool like this, man. Startup, step up, everyone's stepping up. And to tell the story is awesome. I mean, you guys are not just making Pittsburgh proud, you're making the world proud for doing things like this. And I'm so glad we got to tell your story today. I just think it's amazing. And I wish you guys the best of luck. And this thing just keeps growing as far as that goes. And we need to talk on the side about that TP project. There's a moneymaker there.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. Oh,
TPmatchmaker.com.
I can't believe some of the, I got into a bidding war on Joanne Fabrics at one point during this. Every day I get surprised about something else. So that doesn't, that's up there. Seriously though, I really appreciate you giving us the time.
Of course, we're glad to do it. We're just glad you're doing what you're doing. Whatever way we can help just a little bit is what we're gonna do, man. And let's see what happens. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.